Grand Rising, my beautiful kings and queens, and welcome on in to Morning Tea with Mell B. Hopefully y'all can hear me all right this morning. Can you hear me? Awesome. Happy Throwback Thursday, everyone. Now today we're taking it back, and I mean all the way back to the vibes, the flavor, the culture, the music, the style, and the kind of community energy that hit different before everything got filtered, sponsored, and turned into a hashtag. So go on, grab your tea, settle on in, and let's take this ride down memory lane so we don't get stuck there. All right, as always, we start with our affirmation of the day, and it goes, I read. I come from people who survived what was meant to break them. Today I walk in that strength, speak that power, and move like I already know who I am. Ashe. All right, let's get into today's tea. First up, we got Michael B. Jordan made his first public appearance since his Oscar win and used CinemaCon to talk up his upcoming The Thomas Crown Affair, which he is directing and starring in. Also, we have Coco Jones is set to perform at the 2026 Time 100 Gala on April 23rd, and the event is being streamed live for the first time. Nia Long also says that she's teaming back up with Lorenz Tate. Sorry, y'all, not for a Love Jones, but for a new film inspired by Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite. And last, Tessa Thompson was out for the opening of The Fear of 13 on Broadway, keeping her theater run in the spotlight for this week. All right, let's see what happened in the news overnight. Right now, the big headline is that renewed U.S. and Iran talks may resume as soon as this weekend in Pakistan, which regional players like Turkey and Pakistan publicly pushing both sides to keep the talk constructive and turn the current ceasefire into something durable. At the same time, the situation tense is very, very high. The U.S. is tightening pressure on Iran's oil trade, including warnings that buyers of Iranian oil would face sanctions and allowing a waiver on Iranian oil purchases to expire on the 19th of April. There's also major shipping and energy angle to it. Reuters reports that sanctioned super tankers have entered the Gulf despite U.S. blockade posture, and oil prices moved higher because markets are not convinced the talks will quickly fix the disruption around the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for the huge share of global energy flows. So, in other words, there is active diplomacy, but the pressure campaign is still escalating, which means the U.S.-Iran story is still sitting in an ugly zone of negotiations. All right, on to the weather, so y'all know what to put on today and what not to put on today. Starting up in New York, you'll be partly sunny with a high of 89 and a low of 65. Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising. Hello, good morning. Los Angeles, intermediate clouds today with a high of 74 and a low of 55. Chicago, showers on and off today, then clearing off later with a high of 66 and a low of 48. Houston, intermediate clouds and warm today with a high of 87 and a low of 71. Phoenix, partly sunny and dry, high of 87 and a low of 61. Atlanta, sunny and mostly cloudy today. That's contradictory to me. With a high of 85 and a low of 62. DC, mostly sunny and hot. You guys are going to be at the high with a high of 94 and a low of 67. Charlotte, mostly sunny and warm with a high of 89 and a low of 62. Milwaukee, showers early, then partly sunny with a high of 54 and a low of 46. Jackson, partly sunny and pleasant with a high of 83 and a low of 64. Vancouver, mostly sunny and cool today with a high of 52 and a low of 36. Bless up, Jamaica. Kingston, you'll be partly sunny with rain later on this afternoon with a high of 89 and a low of 77. And Instagram friends, Shabu Sanya Butra. Hopefully I said that right. India, hazy sunshine today with a high of 105, OMG, and a low of 82. All right, let's move on to today in history. On April 16th, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the D.C. Emancipation Act, ending slavery in Washington, D.C. It happened 9 months before the Emancipation Proclamation and freed about 3,000 enslaved people in the nation's capital. That is why DC Emancipation Day is still observed every year on April 16th. All right, our inventor scientist of the day. Today we celebrate Lewis Latimer, inventor, engineer, and draftsman who worked to help improve the light bulb and made it more practical and affordable. He also worked on the telephone and contributed to other major technical services and advances of his time. Lewis Latimer is one of those names that deserves more shine because his work helped shape everyday life, even if history, does not always put him front and center. His story is a reminder that Black minds have always been present in the room where innovation is happening, whether the textbooks acted right about it or not. All right, on to our daily feature, which is Throwback Thursday. The eras that built us. Today's feature is all about the eras, the sounds, saying, style, and community values that help shape who we are. Throwback Thursday is not just about nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's about remembering what had substance, what had soul, what had rhythm, what had standards, and yes, what had common sense before the internet let everybody become an expert on nonsense. There is something powerful about looking back at music, fashion, family structure, neighborhood cultures, and social codes that raised generations of us all. Whether you are talking about the Motown era, the soul era, the funk era, the old school R&B, classic hip hop, 90s Black sitcoms, cookouts, beauty shop conversations, church traditions, or the way aunties and grandmas could correct your life with one look. Ooh, that memory. All of it matters. So we talk about things like the difference between music that was made to last and music that is made to trend for 48 hours. How style used to feel more personal and less copy and pasting. How communities used to feel more connected. How people once valued elders living in libraries, not being an inconvenience. How there was more pride in craft, quality, and in storytelling. You can also hit that sweet spot of humor and truth. Like how back in the days, folks had one house phone, one good living room set that nobody was allowed to sit in. And somehow the whole block still knew how to find each other. Or how people had less technology, but more conversation. Less online community, but more actual neighbors who would bring a plate and a prayer. The deeper point of this feature is that not everything old was better, but a whole lot of it had more depth, more patience, more connection, more accountability, more originality, and soul. Looking back helps us remember what's worth preserving instead of letting every meaningful tradition get bulldozed by speed, convenience, or just shallow trends. So Throwback Thursday is not just remember when, it's also what do we need to carry forward. All right, y'all know what time it is? Down the rabbit hole. So, like I mentioned earlier, the Emancipation Day. So why do so many people know Juneteenth, but not DC's Emancipation Day? DC Emancipation Day was unimportant. It was actually the nation's first emancipation law in 1862. But Juneteenth became bigger in public because it marks June 19th, 1865, when Union troops reached Galveston and announced freedom to more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in Texas. Over time, Juneteenth spread through Black community traditions and is now a federal holiday, while DC Emancipation Day remains a district holiday, even though it marks an earlier freedom milestone. So history didn't erase DC Emancipation Day by accident only. It also got outshouted by the holiday that became national. Same freedom road, different exit ramp. All right, on to our fact or fiction for the day. The Negro Leagues were not officially recognized as major leagues until recent years. For decades, black ball players were locked out of white Major League Baseball. So they built their own leagues, their own stars, and their own legacy. Legends like Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, and Rube Foster were all not side notes. They were the note. Rube Foster is even recognized as the father of Black baseball by the Hall of Fame. The fiction was never that these players lacked talent. The fiction was that the system lacked room. In 2020, Major League Baseball finally did what they should have done a long time ago and officially recognized the National Negro League as a major league. So when somebody talks about baseball history and leaves them out, that's not an oversight. That's just bad homework with a loud mouth. So the fact is the Negro Leagues were and always will be a major league. It just took the establishment way too long to admit it. All right, on to our Back to Roots section, where today their topic is African oral tradition and storytelling. So today in Back to Roots, we're talking about African oral tradition and storytelling, and that this is a powerful one because before story was trapped in books, classrooms, and official archives, it lived in its people. It lived in memories. It lived in voice. It lived in our elders. It lived in songs, proverbs, folktales, poems, and community storytelling. Across many African cultures, oral tradition has long been one of the many ways history, value, identity, and family lineages were passed down. This is where you hear about griots, especially in West African traditions. Griots were not just storytellers in the casual sense. They were historians, genealogists, musicians, advisors, and keepers of communal memory. They carried the stories of families, leaders, villages, migrations, victories, warnings, and wisdom. That matters for African Americans because so much of our history was interrupted, erased, renamed, or never written from our point of view in the first place. Oral tradition reminds us that memory is still knowledge. Stories still are evident. Voices of the elders still matter. Family stories still matter. Community says it matters. What gets passed down at reunions, cookouts, church revivals, and kitchen tables all matter. You can also use storytelling in African traditions was also layered. It's not just for entertainment. So a folktale might teach you morality, survival, identity, respect, family values, and communal responsibility. A lot of things that in a way that are really lacking in our communities today. So this is also a place where you just get choked up when you think about it. There's all of the knowledge that has been lost and not passed down. So it's really up to us now to teach our children and our grandchildren a lot of what the ancestors knew, their knowledge. We need to continue passing it down to keep it going. Otherwise, we're going to erase ourselves again. So today, oral tradition still can be alive. We can find it in Black church testimonies, spoken word, family storytellings, call and response culture, music, neighborhood sayings, and the way elders pass down remember when stories that are really coded history lessons. So the big takeaway here is simple. We come from storytelling people. We come from memory keepers. We come from cultures that knew words had power. And in the world that often tries to erase or rewrite us, telling our stories is still one of the strongest ways we can keep our lineages alive. All right, on to our horoscopes for the day, where we always start with Aries. Take your time before reaching out today and reacting. Not every moment needs your fire. Some situations need your patience. Your lucky numbers today are 6, 17, and 28. Taurus, lean into what feels steady and familiar, but do not let comfort keep you from your needed change. Your lucky numbers today are 4, 15, and 24. Grand Rising. Gemini, an old idea may deserve a fresh look. Do not miss something just because you outgrew the first version of it. That hit. Your lucky numbers today are 5, 13, and 29. Cancer. Something from the past may stir emotions again today. Let it teach you, not trap you. Your lucky numbers today are 2, 18, and 30. Leo. Your presence is strong today. Use it to uplift, not overpower. Your lucky numbers today are 1, 12, and 26. Virgo. Do not overthink your next move. Sometimes clarity comes after the step, not before it. Your lucky numbers today are 8, 19, and 22. Libra. Balance your nostalgia with reality. The past had gems, but it also had lessons for a reason. Your lucky numbers today are 7, 14, and 27. Scorpio. Your instincts are sharp, but be careful not to read mystery into things that are simply unfinished. Your lucky numbers today are 3, 16, and 25. Sagittarius. A throwback moment may inspire you in a new direction today. Keep your mind open to what old memories reveal. Your lucky numbers today are 9, 20, and 31. Capricorn. Tradition has something to teach you today as well, but do not let routines choke your creativity. Your lucky numbers today are 10, 21, and 32. Aquarius. Look at the old problem with new eyes. Innovation and memory can work together. Your lucky numbers again today are 11, 23, and 33. Pisces. Your emotions may be extra tender today. Protect your peace, but do not hide from your reflection. Your lucky numbers today are 2, 14, and 26. All right, our truth bomb for today. A lot of people aren't threatened by your past. They're threatened by what happens when you finally realize your worth and stop asking for a seat at the table you already built. All right, y'all, friends, this has been Throwback Thursday right here on Morning Tea with Mell B. I hope today gave you a little nostalgia, a little laughter, and a little reminder that the past still has something to teach us if we're wise enough to listen. Hold on to the good, learn from the rest, and do not let the fast-moving world make you forget the beauty of where you come from. I'll catch you next time with more tea, more truth, and more conversation. And again, if you are into gritty urban fiction, please pick up my book, Black Butterfly. You can catch it on, use the tongue-tied all of a sudden. Use the QR code up in the corner of your screen and go ahead and get it today. You won't be disappointed. Until tomorrow then, stay rooted, stay real, and keep a cool little old fashioned in your spirit today. Period.